turned out to be an evil cannibal in the series. Rainn Wilson posed the simple question, could there be a Bible-reading preacher on a show who was actually loving and kind? He makes a good point. The entertainment industry, and especially the Hollywood liberal elites, go out of their way to poo-poo on Christianity every chance they get. I realize most of these people only worship climate change policy and tofu burgers, but still, it's a glaring anti-Christian and anti-faith bias, and that doesn't reflect the values of most Americans. Believe it or not, it's a good thing to be righteous, and it's a good thing to follow Jesus. I'm Tommy Lahren, and you can watch my show, Tommy Lahren is Fearless, at Outkick.com.
Optimus volunteers contribute time and money to programs that inspire and bring out the best in kids. Optimus give leadership, guidance, and hands-on involvement to activities that shape young people's lives. Optimus help form positive attitudes in kids. And Optimus create opportunities for youth as they develop into adulthood and become role models for future generations. Optimists are doing all of these things right here, right now in our community. If that sounds like the kind of positive action you'd like to take part in, consider joining the local Optimists. You'll have an opportunity to make a real difference in the lives of kids right here. You'll be helping young people develop positive attitudes and approaches to life that will enable them to excel in school and in our community. Volunteer. All it takes is an hour or two of your time. That's not much to help bring out the best in kids. For the location of your nearest Optimist Club, call 1-800-500-8130.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Good afternoon and welcome into the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL, 3:35 in the PM here on the Ides of March. Beware them. March 15th, 2023. And we are fresh off our latest News Talk STL Nation listener event. Hope you all had a great time last night with U.S. Senator Jim Talent and Dakota Wood. Chris, I thought we herded the cats rather well last night. We had a lot of content to get through.
Very, very good event. Both of those guys are just so knowledgeable that you almost have to, it's like taking knowledge in with a fire hose. But they also were able to dumb it down for me so that I could understand it. And what I got out of that and what it was designed for, Tim, like you said when we came in today, was to tell us the stories that we don't want to hear. And it's very frightening to hear how our weaponry has not been kept up to date, how the Chinese and the Russians, or the Chinese, have better equipment almost, or more ships, more planes than we have, and that our pilots are flying like 1 hour a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Terrifying.
We have all heard, to that point, we have all heard over the years and discussed with you, former U.S. Senator Jim Talent and Dakota Wood and Jim Carafano and several other military experts that join us on this station, that the U.S. military needs to do more, that we need more funding, we need more readiness, we need more troops, we need more aircraft carriers, we got to update our fleets, we got to update our pilots. But last night, unlike what we're able to do in a 12-minute radio segment, we were able to drill down deep, and Chris, like you, I didn't know it was that bad either. Folks, we have a major problem, and it's not whether or not we're woke enough in our K-12 educations. China must be laughing at us, along with Iran and all of our enemies around the world, at our lack. If Dakota and Jim Talent were able to tell us these things, then you know that our enemies around the globe know all of that and maybe more with their spy technology.
Yeah, it's no doubt. And I think that's why we're seeing our enemies become more and more brazen. That's why we're seeing China sending spy balloons across the United States, not one, but two. I think that's why we see what we saw yesterday, where they shot down one of our drones in international waters. The United States is perceived as weak because of our president. And as you said, Tim, these statistics about our military and our lack of weapons and ships and planes is no secret.
Mm-hmm. You know, and it's very disconcerting when you think about the fact that China appears to be rising. And now, Chris, so many of the puzzle pieces fell into place last night, I believe, for our audience that was there and for all of us, when they explained that the window of opportunity for China to make a move on Taiwan is narrow and closing. There's the age of the premier. He is 70 years old. There is the declining population, not only around the globe, but also in China. There are certain other factors that have led Dakota and Jim Talent and many other military experts to predict that within 3 to 5 years, China's either going to make a move on Taiwan or they're not.
Yeah. We talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago. I had a story where another point of view said that China may not invade Taiwan militarily, but they may squeeze them economically and in other ways where they have to basically say uncle and they don't have to shoot any bullets or spread or spill any blood. Either way, it is a takeover of Taiwan, which is something that the West and the world doesn't want to see. And it makes you wonder, it's always been ambiguous all these years on would we defend China or Taiwan if China ever invaded. That would be a very interesting question. What would be our response if they don't invade, but they do a economic war blockade or tactic against them?
We don't have the time to get into everything today. We'll touch on some of these bits and pieces. Long story short, number one, if you're regretting that you didn't come to our event last night, come to the next one. Make sure you come to the next one because we did learn a lot in an hour and 45 minutes. It was jam-packed. And number two, the senator and Dakota strongly suggested that everyone, and this includes everyone that's listening to us right now, you all need to call our congressmen and women and our U.S. senators and tell them that one of the few things they're supposed to do, which is provide for our common defense, needs to be done much better than it is. That's in the Constitution. Senator Talent read all the provisions and all the places in the Constitution and didn't have to do, I'm sorry, with full-time daycare and Medicaid expansion, but it did have to do with our military. And you need to call your congressmen and women and your senators and tell them to make military defense and spending a priority for this country. Or, I'm sorry, based on what we heard last night, we're screwed.
Yeah, and also, the mainstream media is not going to cover this, of course, because they're all pacifists, basically. But conservative media need to step up and let that audience know how in dire shape that our military is in. One of the things the senator said, or Dakota, I don't know which one, is that we haven't designed a new missile in a generation, and that to build these missiles, they're not on a assembly line. They're built by hand almost, and it takes years to build these systems. So we are in bad shape. Conservative media, bloggers, everyone needs to let their readership and people know that the United States is not prepared for war, and especially not a war where we're at war for a long time.
Another point on that. First, though, I want to tell you folks, we've got Horace Cooper, Senior Fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research and co-chairman of Project 21, calling us in just a moment. So make sure you listen to this entire set. This is one of our longer segments of the show, our opening segment. So we're going to be featuring a guest here in just a second. That's Horace Cooper. Chris, one of the other, I think, major points was that, this does not have anything to do with warmongering and feeding the military-industrial complex, because the point was made that Reagan and Trump, to an extent, both presided over one of the most peaceful times in our nation. Reagan saw the downfall of the Soviet Union. Donald Trump kept Putin out of Ukraine, all without firing a single shot during their presidencies.
Yeah, and, it's a much different time back then that it is now. There weren't belligerent nations like North Korea that are shooting missiles over Japan. You didn't have, Russia. They did invade Afghanistan in 1980, but you didn't have China in doing what they're doing and engaging in the human rights abuses that you've had. And China, as Dakota said last week or last night, is they want to develop, or they think they have a weapon system that can keep our aircraft carriers from getting close to their mainland. And that's something that shows that they are preparing for war, and we're not, and it's frightening. One question that I would have wanted to ask them, Tim, last night is, they are our military enemy. They are making no bones about it. But the United States and China are also economic partners who depend on each other for trade, to borrow each other. Would China be so foolish to start an aggressive war to end that type of relationship where they've got billions of people? They've had a growing middle class for years, but it's still the vast majority of the Chinese people are poor. What would take them to? What would take for them to do that?
Yeah, I think they'll be careful about minding their P's and Q's as far as their best customer. Another great reason why we need to decouple from China. We're probably 20 years too late on that, but we've got to get started. Let's bring in our next guest, talk about all these topics and more. Horace Cooper, Senior Fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research.
It shouldn't be, it's the economy stupid. We should just say, stupid! It's the economy.
This may be one of the last times we have Horace on. He's big time now.
This does reveal the two-tier system that we live in. If you and I make missteps, we're sitting behind bars while we're busy trying to explain.
As he does every other Wednesday, Horace Cooper of Project 21 and the National Center for Public Policy Research joins us once again on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. Horace, good afternoon. Thanks for being with us here on NewsTalkSTL.
Always a pleasure. How are you guys?
We're doing just fine. So, Horace, please take us to school on what is going on with the Silicon Valley Bank et al., because there have been several other banks that have followed in their footsteps. Collapse. Should the American people be bailing these banks out? Will this lead to another systemic type of bank failure across the country? Or, Horace, can this be an isolated incident if we start making better policy decisions?
Well, it could be an isolated incident if we make better policy decisions. What we have been doing, what the federal government has done, is sent the signal that if you have on your board of directors only one person with banking experience, but others that have creative arts, that have social justice, environmental experience on your board, that's a sign of a bank that might not be prepared when difficulties occur. Internally, the bank, Silicon Valley Bank, was making decisions about how to keep itself profitable. There's a simple rule when it comes to buying and selling stocks. Buy low, sell high. If the bank buys high and sells low, guess what? You're going to collapse at some point. What was supposed to happen is that our federal government, the FDIC, the Department of Treasury, even the Federal Reserve, were absolutely supposed to find someone, either with an auction or just by putting up the announcement, someone to buy the assets that exist and who would have the funds to see to it that any person who wanted to make a withdrawal would be able to do so. That's how you stop a bank run. You fire the executive leadership team. You get rid of and stop making payments to the board of directors, and maybe this is no longer the Silicon Valley Bank. But if you don't do that, And if you instead say, well, this time, we're going to have the FDIC exercise its discretion, even though the Federal Reserve Bank in California should have been overseeing you, even though you should have had more people on your board of directors with this kind of experience, and even though your internal team wasn't competent, but we're going to fix it anyway. You send the signal to other places. They can be woke. They can be incompetently managed. And that is scary. And that's why you're seeing signs that other banks are being asked these kinds of questions. And investors and shareholders, as well as those who have deposits, are wondering whether they should take their money and run from those as well.
You know, of course, as you said, the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco was responsible for overseeing these banks. And what I've read is that the bank's statements and all of that was very public. I mean, that's why there was a run on the bank, because their records were public and people saw that they didn't have liquidity. And what makes it even worse is that the SVB's CEO sat on the board of the Federal Reserve. Talk about San Francisco. Talk about that.
Yeah. So here we have this little cozy relationship. I'm going to be a participant, at least that's the CEO's idea of Silicon Valley Bank, on the Federal Reserve, has as one of its responsibilities to help oversee and supervise the operation of banks. Silicon Valley Bank didn't have limited or no actual assets. They had a liquidity problem, not an asset problem. And their issue was they wanted to be able to wait maybe 6 months, maybe a year and a half, to be able to take the existing assets that they had and transfer those into liquidity. If they moved quickly, those assets came with penalties that more than cut in half their value. That was something that a good bank manager ought to appreciate. That is something that the Federal Reserve there in California ought to also be aware of and have been mindful of. Now, there's a macro policy in all of this, and that is that the President of the United States has adopted an economic policy of spend, 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 and now lately, spend, spend, and tax. That has left the Federal Reserve to deal with the out-of-control inflation. And their tool for doing that is to raise interest rates. So the Federal Reserve sold a few years ago treasuries to the Silicon Valley Bank that paid based on what the inflation rate was. But they've been on an aggressive level of increases that we all feel at the gas pump, at the grocery store. If we're renting, we feel it everywhere. And guess what? So did Silicon Valley Bank. But nothing was done. Immediately when those interest rates started rising, some competent executive was supposed to say, well, we've got to shift. We've got too much in this asset that is declining and won't pay for a while, and we can't loan out money at a cheaper rate than it costs us to get the money. That's just banking 101. So macro policy caused by this president, out-of-control inflation, Federal Reserve has to, in their mind, raise interest rates. The actual solution is for Congress and the president to come together and agree on a 2, 3, or 4-year plan to cut the federal expenditure levels by 10 to 20%. That will reduce inflation. That will end the need for higher interest rates. Now, I am predicting that this year, which was supposed to see a full 12 months of steady 50 basis point increases, probably 6 of them, if not 6, maybe 4. We are probably probably going to see an interest rate drop. Now, that's good news for people who are worried about the skyrocketing interest rates because they need access to credit. That's bad news because we're going to be stuck with stagflation. Inflation will still stay, and we won't have the economic growth.
Horace,
I hope not.
Yeah, Horace, I'm sure we won't get any apologies from the insufferable leftist economists like Paul Krugman and Tom Friedman. And Horace, this is following on the heels of Joe Biden telling us barely 2 months ago at the State of the Union that happy days were here again. Everything was fine. The Joe Biden economy was booming. Well, the opposite is exactly true. Horace, is this finally the end, maybe after, 10 years too long, of this idea that we can have this easy monetary policy, we can always have zero interest rates, we can always have quantitative easing? We're the United States of America. Nothing bad will ever happen to us. Horace, the chickens finally came home to roost, didn't they?
Well, the chickens have come home to roost, but my eye is not on the interest rate per se. My eye is on the macro presence of the federal government and its expenditures, along with its regulations. When the federal government's regulations or the federal government's tax policies or the federal government's payments crowd out the private sector, it creates distortions. So we've got this thing. It's been more than a decade. You said 10, but it's actually been more than a decade of nearly 0% interest. That means that you and I and everyone you know, when they get ready to go to get a car, when they get ready to get a mortgage loan, they're relying on this substantially record low rate. Because of what the Federal Reserve has done, it is killing new home building. It is killing home selling, and the automobile industry is already sending the signs that they are being destroyed. One thing that the president is refusing to do. How about a year, 2-year long freeze on new government regulation and a suspension of some of the existing regulations to give the economy some space, and also sit down with the House Speaker, Mr. McCarthy, and work out a plan not unlike the plan that happened when Barack Obama was president and Republicans controlled the House of Representatives, where in order to get a debt ceiling increase, an actual commitment for long-term expenditure reduction occurred. That was good for the economy. It was great for small businesses, and it would be great today. That's the solution, and yet everything I've said are exactly the things that this president is refusing to do.
Horace, are you scheduled for Fox News Sunday this weekend, and when is your next appearance this week?
So the last time I was on was just last Friday night. We take our calls when we get them, but I can always predict this. Every other Wednesday, I'll be here.
Yes, you will indeed. Horace Cooper, Senior Fellow with the National Center for Public Policy Research, co-chairman of Project 21. Horace, we got 2 minutes left. I want to ask you about a simple question. Is the First Amendment dead on our law school campuses? I'm talking about the temper tantrum that a bunch of spoiled brat privileged kids threw at Stanford Law's University campus this past week, and they couldn't stand the fact that someone was going to apparently be on campus saying things that they don't agree with.
I actually was told when I was in high school that the whole purpose of the university concept was for people to be exposed to ideas that they hadn't heard before, and that they had to learn what the answers were to rebut ideas that they disagree with. And that by rebutting, if they couldn't rebut, then they had to see the value in those ideas, or by rebutting, they were able to show the person who expressed the ideas why those ideas didn't merit being expressed. We're now seeing universities that say, no, we got our own guardrails. And that is, in fact, counterintuitive to the whole concept of universities and college. The left has ruined America's perception of public schools with the shutdowns and all of the mayhem that have been created. If they continue down this course, they'll also ruin America's impression about higher education, too.
Horace Cooper with Project 21 and the National Center for Public Policy Research. Horace, thanks for joining Chris and I, as always.
Thanks, Horace.
Thank you, guys.
All righty, there goes Horace Cooper. We've got a great 4 o'clock hour ahead for you, featuring Mike Ferguson, host of Mike Ferguson in the Morning. He'll join us at 4:25 and at 4:45, Chris's Corner. All that more is straight ahead here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show at 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness 101. Wellness 101 is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on News Talk STL. For more information, visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
Kudos to you guys. I'm not kidding you. Real quick, I got to plug your show because one of my friend's moms goes, I hear you every Thursday on the Vic Porcelli Show. I love that show because it reminds me of The Five on Fox. She goes, Vic and Ken do such a great job of mixing politics with humor, and they play games, and it's just fun. It's informative, but it's entertaining.
Well, thank her for me. Vic Porcelli, weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL.
To have a roof over your head, a nice roof over your head, is very important.
That's Rick talking about his experience with Rhino Shield ceramic coating.
We got Rhino Shield 18 years ago, and they're very cooperative on getting us the right paint. They were in and out and done in no time. Once it was finished, looked great. We were very happy with it.
The main reason Rick called Rhino Shield is because it's backed by a 25-year transferable warranty.
We've watched a lot of people get their house painted 3 or 4 times, and we haven't had to do any of it. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to have to paint it every 5-7 years.
Take a tip from Rick and put down the paintbrush and call Rhino Shield for your free evaluation. 877-25-RHINO. 877-25-RHINO. Or visit 877-25rhino.com.
We got Rhino Shield 18 years ago. Financially makes sense, especially if it's going to last like this did. Still looks great.
Call now. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com.
No paint, don't Rhino. Go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, and always streaming at NewsTalkSTL.com.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Federal investigations into the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank are underway. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
The Justice Department and the Securities and Exchange Commission have each launched investigations into the bank's collapse and, according to the AP, are in the early stages. Officials will also examine the actions of the bank's senior executives. According to a person familiar with the matter, the Justice Department's investigation involves federal prosecutors in California, along with prosecutors involved in fraud cases. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Fears about the world banking system spread to Europe as shares in the globally connected Swiss bank Credit Suisse plunged. The steep drop on Wednesday dragged down other major European lenders in the wake of bank failures in the United States. Wall Street was down much of the day. Russia and the United States ratcheted up confrontational rhetoric over a U.S. surveillance drone that encountered Russian warplanes and crashed near the Crimean Peninsula, while both countries pledged to try to avoid escalation. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says Russian pilots continued a pattern of unsafe behavior.
So make no mistake, the United States will continue to fly and to operate wherever international law allows. And it is incumbent upon Russia to operate its military aircraft in a safe and professional manner.
Army General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said he also planned to talk to his Russian counterpart, General Valery Gerasimov, the chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces. That the two countries' military chiefs were talking underscored the seriousness of the encounter over the Black Sea. On Wall Street, a mixed day as the Dow was down by 288 points. The Nasdaq, however, rose 6, but the S&P 500 declined 27. More on these stories at townhall.com.
It's Prager here. Sue and I mean it. Dogs are part of our family. We love Otto and Snoopy so much. There's nothing quite like their loyal companionship. So we provide them with Rough Greens. In fact, I just talked to my wife about it because we want them to be healthy and we want them to be with us as long as possible. That's true. I know Sebastian Gorka feels the same way.
The Pragers and I couldn't agree more. Our pups, Killian and Leia, rely on us to provide what's best for them. And naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black has packed Rough Greens full of vitamins, minerals, digestive enzymes, omega oils, and more that supplement their food in a way that has shown us great results. Trying out Rough Greens is an easy yes, recommended by me, Dr. G.
Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black here, and I'm so proud that the Pragers and Sebastian Gorka have entrusted their dog's health to Rough Greens. I'm so confident that Rough Greens can help your dog, I'm offering you a free Jumpstart trial bag. Just cover the shipping. Yes, your dog's food is dead food, but you can bring it back to life with Rough Greens. Go to ruffgreens.com.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 meteorologist Kristen Cornett with your first alert forecast. Mostly cloudy and breezy overnight with a low of 43. Scattered light rain showers on Thursday with a high of 59. Breezy as well Thursday night. The rain tapers off. We drop to 31 degrees. Friday, partly cloudy, breezy, and colder with a high of 42. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Kristen Cornett.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
All right, I could do this with my eyes closed because we were there last night. Yeah, View 17, the home of Outreach Studios, is a beautiful event space. Everybody who was there knows exactly what I'm talking about, the massive crowd from News Talk STL Nation we had for our Defending America event. We were in View 17. It is an event space that's available to anyone to rent. Yes, you can have your event there as well. It's an ultra-modern media conference and event center. You can find them online. Lots of really cool pictures. I wonder if there's some pictures of us on here. There might be. View17.com. That's VUE17.com. View 17 is conveniently located right in the heart of the county of St. Louis. It's that giant, tall building, big skyscraper right across the street from the Galleria Mall, right at the intersection, basically, of Interstate 64 and 170. Conveniently located, easy to access, tons of free parking, both covered and surface lots as well for all of your guests. You can set up View 17 any way your heart may desire. The whole space is flexible, adaptable, movable. There's a stage if you need to use it. There's awesome lighting. You could shoot a movie in there if you wanted to. You could have a webinar. You could have a wedding, a bar mitzvah, a birthday party, a fundraiser. You could have a speech, a debate, a conference, anything you may like. It fits several hundred people. They can set it up with high tops, low tops. There's a bar that moves around that can be adjusted. It's really an incredible, unique space with double views of both the city of St. Louis skyline and the city of Clayton skyline. Rob and Lori and the team are ready to stand by and assist you with your next event and make it spectacular and one that folks will speak about for years. Visit them online anytime, 24/7 at View17.com. That's VUE17.com. View 17.
Subscribe and watch your favorite News Talk STL shows.
Mike Ferguson in the morning. The Vic Porcelli Show. Columbo and Katie. Jones and Arps.
Webcam streaming on Facebook, Twitter, Rumble.
Subscribe and watch
News Talk STL. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
You codified support for same-sex marriage and interracial marriages like ours. I'm curious what your evolution was like on marriage equality and what the federal government might be able to do to protect LGBTQ Americans, especially trans kids who are dealing with all these regressive state laws that are popping up right now.
I can remember exactly where my epiphany was.
Okay.
I hadn't thought much about it, to tell you the truth, and I was I was a senior in high school, and my dad was dropping me off. I remember about to get out of the car, and I looked to my right, and two well-dressed men in suits kissed each other. I mean, they gave each other a kiss. And then one looked like he was heading to the DuPont building, and one looked like he headed to the Hercules Corporation building. And I'll never forget, I turned and looked at my dad. He said, Joey, it's simple. They love each other. It's simple. No, I'm not joking.
Yes, he is.
He's not
Yes,
joking,
he is.
guys.
Come on, man.
Was one of them named Angelo from Amtrak?
Yeah.
Is this another
corn pop?
Is this another parable of Joe Biden?
I mean, does he really expect us to believe that even in Vermont, which is, a lot more liberal than the rest of the country, that two men were openly kissing and I did the math. He was born in 1942, so senior, he's 17, 18. That's 59, 60. Do you think in 1959, 1960, two men were openly kissing each other goodbye in public, going to the DuPont building of all places?
And that Joe Biden's dad's response was, they love each other, Joey.
Yeah.
There's no way that happened.
Let's not forget,
No way.
too, that he wrote policy and was completely against same-sex marriage.
Yes,
That was my next point, and that's
Go
what my point I was going to say, and it really kind of shows the hypocrisy of Joe. If you had an epiphany in high school when you're 18 years old, a senior, you were voting all the way up to the Obama administration against gay marriage.
That's such a great point,
So
Chris.
it's like, hey, I'm a hypocrite. You got to give Katie that one, too, because I did think of that point as well. But, yeah, he's just showing he's a big hypocrite.
What? And a liar. And a liar.
For 40 years.
We know he's lying because, as you said, if he had this great awakening back when he was a teenager or whatever or younger, that it was cool for, people to be gay, then why did he vote against gay people for the next 30 years?
And you know what I'd love to do is to find some old quotes of him being in the Senate talking about it or something. I bet you there's plenty of those. Well, what about these quotes from 1972, Joe?
Well,
he said this has been out. This is, you know what? This went viral recently. This went viral very recently where Joe Biden, as an adult male U.S. Senator, said that marriage is a sacrament between a man and a woman. That was out. That was like 20 years ago.
So did Obama, though.
Yes,
so did Obama.
they all did.
But this is where I would have had so much more respect for Joe. So he said this because he was interviewed by a gay man.
Okay.
So he had to pander it.
Okay.
But I would have had so much more respect for Joe if he would have said, "Look, I grew up Catholic. This is not what I believed in. This is not what I was taught. Times were very, very different back then, and that is not what I agreed with. Maybe something changed along the way where I saw a different viewpoint and I changed my mind. But for a long time of my life, I didn't agree with this. We would have all been like, we respect your honesty.
Exactly.
Thank you for your candor.
And Katie, just say, I was not laughing at your comment. What I was laughing at, when I was hearing Joe Biden go through this, I had an epiphany in high school. I thought he was going to be like, yeah, and it was after gym, and we were taking a shower, and somebody dropped the soap, and
do you remember?
That's what I thought he was going to go down.
Do you remember yesterday when we kind of talked about Joe saying he had an epiphany about gay marriage, and all of us were like, oh, God, what's this going to be?
Why can't he just say something along the lines of what Katie just said? Why has he got to make up some crazy cockamamie story that is absolute bull stuff?
Yeah, and
it's
and
baloney. Don't you cuss on this radio show here.
And you know how you know he's lying when he says, I'm not joking. That's the giveaway.
And no one, this is the other thing about that's the part.
That's the giveaway.
The epiphany and the lying and the tall tale is totally a Joe Biden moment. But what I am so sick and tired of is that I'm not joking when no one in the room said anything. No one, the interviewer, I watched the interaction to see if the interviewer made a face or something to him to indicate him to say. No one says anything. No one reacts, and I'm not joking, folks.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
That's Joe Biden inwardly saying to himself, I am telling a bald-faced lie right now, so I'm going to try to cover it up with, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. Listen to me. Yeah, that's the giveaway that he really is lying because he has to do that.
Washington Examiner. The problem with this account is that Biden did not endorse gay marriage until he was seeking a second term as vice president about 6 months before his 70th birthday after voting to ban the practice at the federal level, actually on record voting to ban gay marriage and allow the states to decline to recognize same-sex nuptials performed in other states. Katie, I didn't watch the entire interview. Did the interviewer, bring that fact up with him or cross-examine him on the falsehood and the lies that he was spouting?
No.
And if you'll go back to the Obama administration, their official stance at that time was Barack Obama was against gay marriage. And Joe Biden went on a talk show and said that he supported it. And a lot of people, conspiracy people, think that he was sent out there as a trial balloon to see what the reaction would be. And it was more favorable than they thought, because if you remember, a few days later, Obama came out and said he was for it, or maybe even some weeks later. But he eventually changed the administration and his stance on gay marriage after Joe said that he supported it. Now, I don't believe for a minute that Joe Biden was leading Barack Obama in anything.
I agree with that.
It wasn't like Biden had this, quote, epiphany one day and then a couple weeks later changed his mind. This went on for decades. It was his entire public career, his entire public career until 5 minutes ago was opposing gay marriage.
He'll say this. He'll say, look, Tim, you understand. You're a politician, man. Come on. Sometimes you got to take the tough votes that you don't want to take, even though you may think one other. Times change, man. Come on. I'm sure you've had that happen to you.
You know what that's called? Having zero core. Okay,
That's what he'd say.
I know people evolve their opinions, and we've all done that on certain things. But I want to ask Joe Biden, do you have core beliefs on anything? Is there anything that you have held to your entire career? I think the answer is no. I think he's been on every side of every issue.
That's one of the big knocks on Joe Biden is he doesn't have any core. He was supposed to come around as this moderate Democrat, and then when he gets in the White House, he turns into this flaming AOC liberal in some of his governance. He is, especially with this mental decline that he has, he is whatever you want him to be right now.
But and this also goes to his stance on abortion. He and Nancy Pelosi both flip-flopped completely on what they believe
as
about
practicing
abortion.
Catholics.
Yes, and this is one of two examples that I bring up when I have these discussions with some of my friends. I'm like, these two people have made it a career to say no abortions, safe, legal, rare, that, they always took that from Bill Clinton and they ran with it. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of everything, they don't want to talk about abortions because they're okay with abortions now.
But they'll say this, Katie. Katie, this is what they say. They say, look, I am a Catholic. Personally, I am against abortion. I think it should be safe, legal, and rare and everything. But I don't feel that I should impose that on other people. That's the excuse that they give. I believe I am Catholic and I'm pro-abortion the whole nine, but I shouldn't impose my views on others through the law.
My response to that is, so you're okay with other people killing their children?
Yeah.
Either it's right or I'm sorry, on issues
that's the excuse they always give.
I understand, but there are a lot of issues that are gray, right? There's a lot of issues that are 50 Shades. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong movie.
Wrong one. No Hunter Biden stuff now.
Speaking of cockamamie, whoa! NC-17 version of our show today. There's a lot of issues that you can have a lot of difference of opinions on. There's some, I believe there's a few issues that people should be able to ask you, why are you a Democrat? Yeah. Why are you a Republican? Why are you a conservative? Why are you a liberal? Yeah. And the issue of life to me is one of those. You either believe in upholding life or you don't. Michael Knowles in that little clip you played yesterday.
Yes,
that guy is so smart because all he said was, well, either it's right or it's not.
Yes.
On abortion. And the liberal ladies he were talking to were like, well, it's not right. They admitted it wasn't right, but they still felt, Chris, to your point, well, I shouldn't make that decision for other people. Well, if it's not right, then why shouldn't you make that decision for other people?
And they'll say this. They'll say, well, that's something between them and their God or whatever they believe as their higher being. That's something they have to reconcile with their conscience, with their God eventually. I should not impose on that.
But and again, I know that we understand where the liberals come from with this, but that's why it's so important for pro-life people to tell them, and this is what I do oftentimes, the debate is not about my body, my choice. That, of course, was a clever mantra that was made by the marketing department of the Democrats. They have that skill. They have a very good skill of marketing. But it's not about reproductive rights or women's rights or what women can do with their body. The simplicity of this, it is murder or it is not. And if it is murder and you say to me, I know that abortion is murder, and you are okay with that, that is a completely different discussion than my body, my choice.
How do you change their minds? Because they won't accept that because they don't believe it's murder because it's not a body or it's not a person, it sells. How do you convince them that it's a child?
You know, you
never will.
You know
what you do? Pull up the 6-week heartbeat.
There you go. Yeah.
There is something to be said that you don't even have to show the video of an ultrasound of the little peanut that is your baby at 6 weeks auditory. You just have to pull up the heartbeat of the baby at 6 weeks, and you tell me that when you hear a heartbeat of another living, viable person, human being, that's a clump of cells.
Preach, Katie. I hear you.
Because you can.
I like that. The marketing department of the Democrats.
That's what they are.
I like that. I would add the marketing department of the Democrats' death cult.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much
From
it.
the pit of hell.
And you know what? This is a perfect example of, so politicians a lot of times will use the phrase, the slippery slope. Well, this is a perfect example of that because you can't give an inch on this because they have fallen down the slippery slope, right? They went from safe, legal, and rare to now abortion up until the moment of birth. So they've taken the inch and they've gone a mile. They're doing it the same with the transgender cult issue, and it all comes to one finality for me. This is a party that now believes in death and not life, because the end result of the transgender cult is having a bunch of beings that cannot reproduce. You can't reproduce if you've gone through chemical castration, sterilization, and irreparable surgical operations.
Yeah.
You can't. So you know what? There's a group of people out there that they're kind of nihilists, right? They're kind of ending their own ability to be here and continue this discussion because none of them are going to reproduce at some point.
Yeah. I commented last night on Senator Shore's one of his tweets. It was about the castration of children and this whole sex reassignment thing. And, he's not exactly loved by the liberals on his Twitter. And some of the
Nick and Tim Jones,
some of the comments that these people were saying on here, just trying to justify and rationalize grooming children. Oh, it's no big deal. What's wrong with just having a costume on and reading to these children? And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe these people either naive, stupid, blind, or in denial, or maybe a combination of all of them. But I don't see how anyone can't see what the agenda is of having some freak, coming to your library or to your kindergarten, reading to your children, gyrating around them like it's some sex show. And that's nothing wrong with that?
Yeah, drag
Try
shows
taking your kids to a strip club and see how quickly DFS gets called on you.
Yeah, drag shows are not meant. They have never been meant for children.
Hell no.
They have never, ever been meant for children. I have been to dozens of drag shows.
You want to share that on the?
Well, yeah. Oh my God, it was fun. You do it for bachelorette parties or whatever. They're really really fun and quirky, but not meant for children. Nothing like that. Nothing in the arena of sexualization and confusion should be for children.
Exactly.
At that
That's
age.
a good way of looking at it. That's all you are is promoting sexual confusion because you have these people that look like women, but they're really men. Is that normal? You're exactly right. I never looked at it that way.
And did you, to that very point, could you play the very beginning of that clip again where the interviewer talks about the way that the words, all of the letters kind of just rumble out of their mouths together, where they talk, where they have hijacked the lesbian, gay, and bisexual movement with the trans movement.
Yeah.
My argument is those are two very different things.
The clip that I just played?
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen to the way he just rolls this out with the trans movement.
You codified support for same-sex marriage and interracial marriages like ours. I'm curious what your evolution was like on marriage equality and what the federal government might be able to do to protect LGBTQ Americans, especially trans kids who
Right
are
there.
dealing with all these regressive state laws.
When in the world did we decide that what is a trans kid? That is manufactured. That's a fairy tale. These kids don't know what they are. They haven't developed. Their frontal cortexes are a long way from being complete. Many of them are confused. They need counseling. They're depressed. They're sad. They're mentally distressed. They have diagnosable disorders. They need counseling, not sterilizations and surgical operations.
And unfortunately, it's been made kind of chic. When you look at, Katie, you'll know this a lot better than I do. Who's the celebrity that adopted the African child that has made him into a woman, into a girl now? Is one of the real super famous athletes. You see this now with, you know what I'm saying? And Dwayne Wade, great basketball star. His son has transitioned into
I thought that's what you were talking
about.
about.
No, there's a very famous actress. And I can't think of her name right now.
Angelina Jolie?
It might have been. That's what I was thinking, but I thought maybe it'd been
You know
wrong.
what? No,
I don't think it's her.
I don't think it's her.
Okay.
I'll think about that. But
You're
I
right,
think,
though. There is somebody out there. Yeah,
and they've turned this child,
mainstreamed
this male child, African child that she had adopted, into a female. Wears dresses,
but
the whole nine.
We're talking. This is what doesn't make sense. We're talking about kids. Like, this conversation, this is an adult conversation that we're having that should be for adults. And somehow along the way, it has turned into a conversation that is involving children now.
Because they'll say that these kids are unhappy. They feel trapped in the wrong body. We've got to do something to help them. If this makes them feel better, to mutilate themselves and castrate themselves to be who they want to be, we should allow them to do it. We want them to feel good about themselves. That's the whole sick mindset.
And then, Chris, what do you do when they feel differently a year later?
Oops.
Right?
Oops.
Crap, we already cut
sorry.
Tracy's breasts off.
Cut things off.
Now what are we going to do? Because if anybody who's had kids, we've all been kids. How many times did you change your mind as a kid? Like every 5 minutes. It's sick. It's right. You're right. It's Chris. It's sick. It's twisted. And you know what? That is a hill worth dying on.
Yeah, I hear you. Like, and Larry Connors says that.
Yeah.
He will, when it comes to children, he wants to protect children, and he will fight almost to the death about that. He says that in his speeches.
Lock and load, ready on the right.
Lock and load.
Absolutely. All right. Hey, speaking of great prognosticators here on our station, we're going to be joined by Mike Ferguson next, the host of the Mike Ferguson in the Morning Show. He will join us next here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show at 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to News Talk STL.
I have only 5 words for you. From my cold, dead hands.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 meteorologist Kristen Cornett with your first alert forecast. Mostly cloudy and breezy overnight with a low of 43. Scattered light rain showers on Thursday with a high of 59. Breezy as well Thursday night. The rain tapers off. We drop to 31 degrees. Friday, partly cloudy, breezy, and colder with a high of 42. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Kristen Cornett.
It's already March, and that hot, muggy St. Louis summer will be here soon, so don't get caught off guard by your air conditioner breaking down. Mike Ferguson here from my friends at Anton's, 314-338-3941. Call them and schedule your AC tune-up today, and it's only $79. That way, your house is ready and your family doesn't have to worry about the heat. 314-338-3941 or antonshvac.com.
Hey folks, Tim Jones here for Window World. Window World truly is and simply the best for less. You can give them a call at 314-993-1800. Window World is one of only 2 windows in the country that currently carries the very coveted and prized Good Housekeeping seal of approval. So you know right off the bat, their windows are time-tested and freaking fantastic. In just over 20 years in the business here in St. Louis, Window World has, get this stat. This is amazing to me. This blows me away every time I say it. They have improved the look and thermal efficiency of over 70,000 customers here in St. Louis. That's a testament to how great Window World windows are. They use a double-strength glass that gives their windows a strength not commonly used in replacement windows. They're incredibly durable, so durable that when I was out at their factory with Mike Ferguson, we were able to stand on their windows. That's how amazing they are. They also come with a lifetime warranty, so that relationship, that customer-client relationship, that continues way after the install is done because they carry a lifetime warranty that covers all parts, glass breakage, and labor. Window World is currently offering 18 months, same as cash financing with approved credit, and they're the preferred window of the St. Louis Blues. Give them a call, 314-993-1800. If you have any questions whatsoever or would simply like a free in-home estimate, give Window World a call at 314-993-1800 or 24/7 at windowworld.com. That's windowworld.com.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
Nate Lucas, our sports guy, doesn't talk about sports. How many times do you think Adam Schiff got beat up on the playground when he was a kid?
What a beta male. Can you imagine having him as your representative in Congress? First of all, you little beta fish, why don't you do your job? Why don't you worry about your own backyard in California, which is turning into a third world country under your leadership? It is the same play every single time with these jackwagons.
Vic Porcelli, weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL.
Even in these uncertain times, Missouri lawyers are here to help. If your income has been impacted by the current global crisis, or if you qualify as a low-income household, you can have your legal questions answered for free at missouri.freelegalanswers.org. You can ask up to 5 questions, and they'll be answered by a lawyer licensed in Missouri at no cost to you. Missouri lawyers want you to know you are not alone. Get free answers to your legal questions at missouri.freelegalanswers.org. Brought to you by the Missouri Bar.
I'm Susie Moore, and this is More to the Point. If you follow politics closely, and if you're listening to this, you likely do, you've probably noticed that while congressional hearings often make for big, flashy news stories, very little actually comes from them. Anytime I write or read an article about a hearing, I see multiple comments about how it's all for show and nothing's going to come of it. And I get that. It's easy to become cynical after seeing how frequently bureaucrats and elected officials are accused of malfeasance and maybe even shown to be guilty of it, yet never really held to account. What's the point, many wonder, or what difference at this point does it make, to borrow a phrase from one such culprit? The thing to keep in mind is this. There may not be criminal repercussions, maybe not even the loss of a job or appointment, but that doesn't render such exercises futile. They remain a useful tool for digging into shady situations and shining a light on them. As the saying goes, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Rather than focusing on what we perceive as justice, something that might not be meted out by us or in this lifetime, perhaps we're better served to focus on exposing the corruption and lies for all to see.
Susie Moore is Deputy Managing Editor for RedState.com. For more to the point and everything Susie Moore, log on to RedState.com. Follow Susie on Twitter at SmoozyQ and keep listening to 1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at Stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Dropping truth bombs and making you think. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
The Hunter's criminal defense attorney, Josh Levy, has suddenly just quit. He's jumping ship just as House Republicans are preparing to ramp up their investigations into Hunter. Now, it looks like Hunter's pricey legal team is beginning to crack. According to leaks, Hunter's sugar brother, Kevin Morris, the guy who paid off $2 million in Hunter's back taxes, has been clashing with Levy. And Hunter's sugar brother went out looking for a plan B. So they brought in the big guns, the attorney Democrats run to when they're in deep doo-doo. Abe Lowell, whose first order of business was firing off a blizzard of frivolous legal threats to everybody. But Levy, the guy who just quit, thought was a terrible idea, and he warned Hunter it would be a PR stunt, which it came off as. But Hunter and his sugar brother didn't listen to him. They're sticking together. Sugar brothers stick together. And they told him to take a hike, and he's out. Now, say what you want about lawyers, but they're not dumb. And they know when to get out if they're going to lose the case.
Mike Ferguson.
I'm the world's heavyweight wrestling champion.
Gabe Pfeiffer.
I'm Batman.
Get up, can't you hear the alarm? Get up.
I want to be clear. I'm not going nuts.
No.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
The host of the Mike Ferguson in the Morning Show at AVP Radio Show on Twitter, Mike Ferguson, back with us on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. We're doing AM in the afternoon here. Good afternoon, Mike. How you doing?
Hi, Mike.
Hey, doing pretty well. Hey, guys, how's it going? Man, that saga of Hunter Biden and people quitting, what a bad decision Hunter's making out there. I mean, what's that guy been smoked? Oh, never mind.
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to ask you about that. So, Mike, if this were Donald Trump or Donald Trump Jr. or Eric Trump or Jared Kushner, of course, Mike, everyone in the corrupt corporate media would be using the same talking points today, wouldn't they? They'd be saying the walls are closing in. Are the walls going to close in on Hunter Biden and the big guy finally, Mike, or is the deep state going to find a way to drag this out forever and ever? Amen.
I think the establishment is going to find a way to keep Hunter Biden out of jail, but I got a feeling somebody's going down for something. My guess is that somebody's going down, but it's not going to be somebody named Biden. But they're gonna toss a sacrificial lamb out there for Club Fed.
Mm-hmm. You know, Mike, too often we hear about crime in urban areas, especially in St. Louis and Chicago, where police officers are hurt or killed. We had an unfortunate example that it doesn't always happen in an urban area. A Herman police officer was shot and killed by a suspect early this week. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, this guy's name is Kenneth Lee Simpson. The last address that any media could find was actually in Eureka, but this happened, like you said, out in Herman, where two police officers were killed. Detective Sergeant Mason Griffith, and I believe he actually served another really small town as kind of their part-time police chief as well. He and an officer named Adam Solentrup responded to the Casey's there on Highway 19 as you head into Herman. You know, if you're going down to wine country, going down to the wineries and the cafes, you go right past that Casey's. I've filled up my car at that Casey's before, and it turned out there was some kind of disturbance. They figured out, hey, wait a minute, that's the guy who's wanted, and a shootout happened between Kenneth Lee Simpson and the police officers. Simpson hit both of the officers. Mason Griffith died on the way to jail, on the way to the hospital. Adam Solentrup is at least as of this morning, was still listed in critical condition, but at least he was stable. And then what happened is Kenneth Lee Simpson got into a house kind of across the street from the gas station, and that's where the standoff happened earlier this week. When he finally gave himself up, and this is, I think, important to people who know a lot about law enforcement, is they had taken the handcuffs off of Detective Griffith, and when they secured Kenneth Lee Simpson, they used the handcuffs of the officer that he had killed in that situation. Kenneth Lee Simpson's criminal record, from what we can find, goes back to at least 2004, and one of the criminal cases against him back around 2020 or so was continued because they shut down the courts because of the COVID shutdowns. And so he was let out, and he was basically continued, and then he went on the run about a year later before they could try him. So this guy's been around the court system and been around police and been around jails for a long time. It's a guy who should have never still been out of prison. He had warrants active in at least 2 counties.
Speaking of Mike Ferguson of the Mike Ferguson in the Morning Show at AVP Radio Show on Twitter, Mike, you all do such a great job in the morning covering all of the news we need to know from the international down to the local scene. I want to ask you about the Kim Gardner case, the state of Missouri versus Kim Gardner, with the Attorney General of the state of Missouri filing that quo warranto action to try to remove her from office. That is the remedy for a public official who violates the public trust in their office. Mike, I understand that there was a pleading due, a responsive pleading due from Kim Gardner's office, I believe, in the last few days or so. Do you know if that pleading was ever filed, or whether she's asked for more time, or what the status of that case is? Has anything happened over the last few weeks regarding that you've heard?
Yeah. Matter of fact, that deadline was due at midnight, last night midnight, and she got it in at just after 9:30 at night and filed it electronically. We actually had the Attorney General on the morning show today, and she filed it so late that he and his office hadn't had time to review it when I talked to him this morning. There's supposed to be, or there was originally scheduled, some kind of hearing tomorrow, I think preliminary, just to try to set the schedule and set the calendar. If she's going to ask for some kind of continuance, that's when she's probably going to do it. But in the filings the pleas that she did file late last night, she did ask the court to kick it. She asked to dismiss the whole thing, which is, Tim, you've been an attorney before. We're not going to hold it against you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty standard, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
you might as well take your shot. I mean,
Yes.
So it looks like, I don't know whether they're going to do it. I'd be a little surprised. But it was interesting because when you read the filings that she did, and there were 4 separate ones, she essentially, in addition to saying, no, I'm not doing a terrible job, you should let me keep, her filings actually went on to say, if I did suck at my job, that's not enough reason to remove somebody elected by the people. And at one point, she actually argued, and I actually read directly from the pleading on the air, that she's not responsible for some of the negligence and some of the, just absolute incompetence, because those were done by the lawyers who report to her. It wasn't done by her personally, because somebody she supervised was dropping the ball that she shouldn't be held accountable in the office. And, she literally made that argument in part to the courts in her effort to save her job. Just kind of unreal.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable. When I heard that, I mean, you're responsible for your underlings if they're not doing the job. You write them up, you build a case, you have a file, and then you dismiss them. That's a horrible excuse. Another thing that we are hearing about, Joe Holloman had a story in the Post-Disgrace about St. Louis County weed tax plan. The people that are pushing for it have been paid $1 million by the county since 2020. You know anything about that?
Okay, so what's going on with this? I mean, the updated one, I can't speak to back to 2020, but since amendment passed, and this is an interesting one, because the state put a sales tax on marijuana as part of Amendment 3. Right. And so St. Louis County wants to add another sales tax, which Amendment 3 does allow, but so do a bunch of cities. And so what Amendment 3 does not make clear is whether or not you can get those taxes piled on. So, like, for instance, I live in Richmond Heights. I don't even know if we have a dispensary in Richmond Heights, but I know Maplewood does. So if Maplewood were to do that, then they would add a 3% sales tax in addition to the other sales taxes. And then if the county voters passed it, then you would be just stacking on tax after tax after tax. So, everybody wants a piece of the action. But what's really interesting is that marijuana sales last month in Illinois went down 10%.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, and an industry expert was on with KMOV and actually admitted, saying the taxes are cheaper in Missouri, and we know that's where people are going. They explicitly said the lower tax rate is attracting business to Missouri. So in St. Louis County and a bunch of areas, their answer is, well, let's raise the taxes. Yeah. Apparently not realizing there's a correlation, and they're going to drive the business right back across the state line if their taxes get up there where Illinois is. And so it's just another reason in my mind to vote against that tax increase, because you're probably going to have a negative, declining return. Because right now, I mean, in February alone, there was $71 million of wacky tobacco sold in the state of Missouri, and all of that is subject to local sales taxes and that state sales tax. So this push for greedy governments to just try to grab more and more and more actually could end up putting things on the back end of that bell curve and actually reducing the amount of income that governments get. So never miss an opportunity to screw something up if you're in government, you know?
And people eventually, once the taxes get too high, they're just going to go buy it on the black market.
Yep, exactly, where you're buying God knows what that's laced with God knows what.
Exactly. Stay away from that stuff these days. Mike, who you got coming up tomorrow morning on the big program?
Yeah, Daryl Jones from our friends over at the Herzog Foundation. I know he's been on with your show a couple times. This is really something because, you know, they really focus on trying to support particularly Christian schools and private schools and school choice. But they're pointing out that, you know, some states are running into big problems with this whole trans thing and states trying to, you know, really force that on people. Well, in public schools, there's not a lot you can do other than get your kids out there. But there are some states where they are trying to, they are trying to force that onto private schools as well. And so they're looking at how Christian schools can wait kind of that insulation and the extra level of protection from kids and what the schools need to be doing too. So everybody who's got their kids in a classical school or just a non-sectarian private school or, you know, parochial school, they need to be tuning in tomorrow on the 7 o'clock hour.
Mm-hmm. They sure do. The Mike Ferguson in the Morning Show out of the gates at 5:30 a.m. here every Monday through Friday at News Talk STL. Mike's at AVP Radio Show on Twitter. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
You got it, guys. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, talk to you as well. All right, very good. We've got Chris's Corner coming up.
Yeah, we do. You know, I'm going to go back down memory lane again. I've got the old Time review book from 1977.
Nice.
We're going to show how science may have been wrong. That's on Chris's Corner.
Science. All of that and more is next in Chris's Corner at 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
This is News Talk STL at 101.9 94.1 99.1 HD3 and NewsTalkSTL.com.
Somebody at the White House has been smoking the devil's lettuce.
Follow Chris Arps on Twitter at Chris_Arps. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 meteorologist Kristen Cornett with your first alert forecast. Mostly cloudy and breezy overnight with a low of 43. Scattered light rain showers on Thursday with a high of 59. Breezy as well Thursday night. The rain tapers off. We drop to 31 degrees. Friday, partly cloudy, breezy, and colder with a high of 42. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Kristen Cornett.
Free speech is alive and well in America.
Sometimes it's hard to know what's real and what isn't.
Right here.
The country is heading in the wrong direction under this president. We're suffering shortages. America's running out of everything.
News Talk STL. News, analysis, opinion.
Well, you made it through Hump Day. Time to celebrate. Great place to do that tonight, tomorrow night, Friday into the weekend would be Johnny's Hideout, the best and newest St. Louis sports bar and grill experience. They've got over 30 big screen TVs, a huge game room, and fantastic outdoor patios. Yes, as in patios, plural. Johnny's Hideout located in gorgeous High Ridge, only a mere 10 minutes from 270 and Gravois. A fantastic menu, great for lunch, great for dinner, 6 days a week. They've got the famous, I always get the Johnny Dow's chicken wings. They're just spectacular. And they make them about 7 different other ways as well. Also, the best barbecue in town. As I mentioned, on the front of Johnny's, they got the awesome Boulevard patio. Right now, it's a 3-season room where they've got the heat lamps kicking and also a lot of live music on the weekends. In the back, the Sunset patio with the Sunset stage and the train station bar, ready to roll as spring is about to be sprung all across the heartland. Check everything out that Johnny's has to offer on their website at jhideout.com, on Facebook at Johnny's Hideout STL. That's Johnny's Hideout in High Ridge, jhideout.com, jhideout.com. Johnny's Hideout. I'll see you there.
Hi, I'm Dr. Alan Link. Your smile is your number one asset.
I was in a car accident. My front tooth cracked. I'm definitely embarrassed to smile. I got mini dental implants. It changed my life.
If you are missing one or more teeth or suffer from loose dentures, Mini dental implants might be the solution for you. I have placed mini implants with amazing results. Mini dental implants are less invasive, less painful, and your recovery time is much shorter. Let me give you your self-confidence back and give you the ability to eat the foods that you love to eat, but that you simply can't at this point. Plus, best of all, the cost to you is much less than with older, more traditional dental implants.
It made me feel like me. Like I can smile and feel like Ashley. Just want to say thank you.
We are here to help you at the Dental Link.
Call Dr. Alan Link today at 314-794-6464 to schedule your free consultation. Offices in Baldwin and Melville. That's the Dental Link at 314-794-6464.
Have you been floored? Not until you've gone to Michael's Flooring Outlet. They've been a locally owned and operated family business for more than 28 years. You want variety? Michael's has carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, luxury vinyl, natural stone, and many other options. Save money and get quality at Michael's. Plus, your installation will be done right the first time when you hire the experts at Michael's. You can shop in store at one of their 3 convenient locations or shop from home. Check out everything that Michael's has to offer at igotfloored.com.
When is a financial help show not just a financial help show? When it's Pocket Watching with JT, the caller-driven financial talk show focused on helping you get your money right. Jason Thornton is a certified financial planner licensed in both tax and investments. You get JT's real reaction to all your money and business questions. Plus, you get JT's take on all the latest financial news. This is not just another financial show. Pocket Watching with JT now every Friday night at 8 p.m. on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
On Thursday, we've got the latest regarding the saga of Kimberly Gardner's incompetence or negligence or maybe malfeasance. Yeah, let's go with that.
Morning starting at 5:30 on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Everything woke turns to okay? It's true.
It gets old when you talk to the sun in a tongue understood.
What we have to do is I've said no more drilling off our ocean. I mean, the whole range. But there has to be the ability to generate some energy. But we can get rid of coal much more rapidly.
And welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. It's 4:49 in the p.m. here at 1019 94.1 News Talk STL. You can listen to us around the globe at newstalkstl.com. And you can download our apps. You can listen to us on smart devices. You can watch us at Rumble, YouTube.
Yes, on YouTube.
Really?
Yes, on YouTube.
Oh,
we're still there.
Well, we're back.
We're still
we've been
there.
Back a couple of years.
Well, we've been back, maybe 4 or 5 days.
Oh, okay.
4 or 5 days, but we're still there temporarily.
Well, one strike.
We got one strike. We could be gone any moment.
Rumble, Facebook, our old reliables.
Yes.
Sometimes YouTube.
Yes.
All right, we're back in the act. We're back in the saddle today. Chris, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, my friend?
We're doing well.
Good,
We're doing well.
good,
We're a little groggy after last night, but it was a
Yes.
fantastic evening. We're kind of running on adrenaline right
We
now after
are.
a great event with Dakota Wood and former U.S. Senator Jim Talent.
Exactly. That clip that we played coming in, was Joe Biden again. Doing what his green masters are wanting to do to try to scare us that the climate is changing. We need to do drastic things like cut down on oil, even though we're having billions of barrels of oil underneath our feet. You remember a couple of weeks ago, I did a Chris's Corner from a book that I received, 1977. Very interesting going back, looking in time 46 years ago. And we're going to do that next on Chris's Corner.
Chris.
The whole thing is a joke.
Good God, we got to do something here, people.
It's not personal. It's strictly business.
My favorite black leader of all time is Frederick Douglass, who asked after emancipation, well, we just freed the blacks, now what are we going to do with them? And his answer was, leave us alone.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
You know, now that the Republicans are in the majority in the House, thank God they are going to try to curb back some of the left and Joe Biden's massive green energy deals. The House Republicans have unveiled a 174-page energy bill. It's called the Lower Energy Costs Act. What it would do is it would streamline the Environmental Policy Act permitting process, and the bill would repeal probably about $27 billion in the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund that was established by the Democrats in the Inflation Reduction Act. You know, the planet's warming. We're all going to die. The oceans are rising. The polar bears are dying. We hear it time and time again. That's what we've all been ingrained with. We talked about it last week. It all started with Captain Planet in the 80s, where they were indoctrinating children then about climate change and the environment. Well, I looked back on the book that I had back in 1977, where Time Magazine did some of their big stories of the year. And one of the big stories of the year in 1977 was the Great Winter Blizzard of 1977. There was an unusually cold winter. And apparently from the article here, this was a trend that had been happening in the 60s. I'm going to read a paragraph from it to show you just how alarmed people were back in 1946, especially the environmentalists. They said, quote, we should not start worrying about an ice age, a climatologist at Columbia University's Lamont Observatory remarked. But in the great winter of 77, that long view did not seem especially reassuring. The environment had suddenly turned hostile, and in the Midwest, the Northeast, and even the once sunny South, many Americans were thought they knew too well what the cutting edge of a new ice age might look like. Check this out. One day in January, for example, in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, that's where you go to hang out spring break, right? Go swimming.
Yeah.
And an astonished judge named Clyde Wells stopped the trial so that a prisoner and jury alike could enjoy a once-in-a-lifetime view of white flakes floating down from the sky. Floridians are not used to snow, nor to the cold as low as 32 degrees in Miami Beach, which froze a third of the state's orange crop and increased the price of frozen orange juice by a third. Wow. 1977-78 sounds like, and you remember back in 1970, I think Time Magazine did a article on, are we entering a new cold ice age? Oh, man, you would have never have thought that 46 years later, we're at the opposite extreme, where now we think that we're going to overheat the climate and cause massive ocean flooding. You know what this tells me, Tim and Katie? What this tells me is we really have no idea what the climate's going to be 46 years later or even 2 weeks later, because I've never watched the evening news and the weatherman said, I'm going to give you a 35-day forecast on the weather.
Yes.
It's a week, maybe at best. That's the best they can do. So in a short 46 years, we've gone from almost going to freeze the planet to death to now we're going to overheat it. Liberals, please just go away and leave us alone. And that is Chris's Corner.
The 30-day podcast, the 30-day of forecast, that does crack me up because, if you hear Steve Templeton talk about it, he's weary to even leave it to the next week.
Exactly.
He's like, I don't want to give you guys something that's wrong.
Yeah.
The only thing you can look at is like the Farmer's Almanac and look at patterns.
It's trends, exactly.
Trends, right?
Mm-hmm.
It may be a little warmer in May. It may be less rainy. And how about the fact that right now, as we sit here in the heartland, the Northeast is getting buried under feet of snow, record snow. But of course, Chris, that's climate change too.
Yeah, because they changed the language on it. It used to be global warming. That was the big soundbite. And then when their data didn't show that the climate is changing, that, when Al Gore goes to a climate conference and it's like, freezing in like September or something, it shows that, or it's warm. You guys know what I'm saying. But it kind of dispels what they were all saying.
Do you think people have realized the language change? Because if you notice, Chris, you're exactly right. They don't say global warming anymore.
Yeah,
you know why?
change.
You know why they don't say global warming? Because as Chris just pointed out, there's actual There's no discernible scientific data that shows that the Earth is warming anymore.
Yeah.
So now they say, well, we have storms because climate change, and that's bad. We have wind because of climate change, and that's bad. It's cold because that's climate change, and it's bad. So any tumultuous weather, they just say it's climate change and it's bad.
Yeah, and here's one of their other predictions that were wrong. Remember after Katrina, we were going to have just these monumental biblical hurricanes, one after another. Where have they been?
Yes, you're right. There have been fewer major hurricanes in the last 5 years than like in the previous 20.
So they don't. The predictions are BS.
When have you ever heard the good news story about that? There hasn't been one. There hasn't been one. Well done, Chris. Once again, debunking the climate crazies. All right, the Speaker's Stump Speech is next. I'm going to debunk some more things that the left loves to talk about, and that's their theories on the economy. Yeah. Climate change and the economy, destroying the lunatic left every day on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 101.9, 94.1, News Talk STL.
Hey, Tony Colombo here for Gutter Pros. When Christine and I bought our new house, we knew the gutters were an issue, and after meeting the Gutter Pros team, we knew that they were right for us. Gutter Pros is your all-in-one gutter service team that offers a variety of affordable solutions, and they even offer free estimates, so there's no cost to you to find out if they are right for your home, just like they were for ours. If you're having a problem with your gutters, contact the Gutter Pros now, because with Gutter Pros, water goes where they tell it to. Call them at 314-656-7195 or visit gutterpros.com.
The Republican Party, City of St. Louis, stands in solidarity with Attorney General Andrew Bailey in his decision to lead the process to remove Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner from office. As we and Republican candidates for alderman have highlighted, she has pandered to perpetrators over providing justice for victims. Her incompetence has devastated our police force morale. Kim Gardner must go. The future of our city is at stake. Read our full statement at stlouisrepublicans.com.
Paid for by St. Louis City Republican PAC. Curtis Farber, Treasurer.
iHelp is the immigrant home English learning program here in St. Louis that helps empower immigrant families by providing individualized, in-home English language education and tools for the effective navigation of our community. iHelp connects volunteer teachers with adult immigrant and refugee learners in our community to develop English and life skills. To learn more or to volunteer as a tutor, visit ihelpstl.org. That's ihelpstl.org.
For $1 a day, if any covered appliance breaks in your home, we guarantee to fix or replace it. All makes and models, washers, dryers, refrigerators, air conditioners, and more. Guaranteed to be fixed or replaced for $1 a day. Call the Home Service Club now for free information.
800-399-3701. 800-399-3701. 800-399-3701. That's 800-399-3701.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, and always streaming at NewsTalkSTL.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. A Russian fighter jet clipped an American drone over the Black Sea on Tuesday, forcing the U.S. to bring down its MQ-9 and adding to tensions over Moscow's war in Ukraine. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
Interceptions between U.S. drones and Russian warplanes are not uncommon, but not like this. For more than half an hour, 2 Russian jets made several passes on the MQ-9, spraying it with fuel before colliding with the drone's rear propeller.
This MQ-9 was operating in international airspace over international waters and posed a threat to nobody.
And National Security spokesman John Kirby goes on to say,
it was an unsafe and unprofessional intercept.
But Russia's ambassador Anatoly Antonov says the drone intruded on an off-limits area. Russia insisting it did not hit the U.S. drone, the U.S. saying the Russian pilot was just incompetent. I'm Julie Walker.
The House Homeland Security Committee held its first field hearing on the border crisis in McAllen, Texas, near the border with U.S. and Mexico. U.S. Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz says his hands are tied when it comes to deciding who gets sent back after migrants cross the border.
You have to have capacity and you have to have consequences. And anytime you don't have consequences, you're certainly going to see some increases. And we continue to try and repatriate individuals back to countries that we can repatriate. But it's been a challenge for us.
California's 11th atmospheric river of the winter is taking parting shots at southern counties as it moves out after walloping the storm-battered state. Water, mud, and rocks are reported Wednesday on many roads, along with potholes that have disabled numerous cars. Flooding has closed several miles of Pacific Coast Highway through Huntington Beach and Dana Point. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 288 points. The Nasdaq rose 6. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Inflation is pushing up the cost of just about everything: food, gas, clothing. But life insurance, which thanks to inflation you need now more than ever, actually costs less today than it did a few years ago. Now is the time to get the insurance you need at a price you can afford. Call SelectQuote now and we'll help you save more than 50% on term life insurance. In a hurry? Don't worry. With SelectQuote, you can get up to $2 million in instant, same-day coverage with no medical exam. That's right. Get up to $2 million in instant, affordable same-day coverage with no medical exam in under an hour.
Call SelectQuote now at 1-800-507-2266. That's 1-800-507-2266. Or go to SelectQuote.com now and get up to $2 million in instant same-day coverage with no medical exam. That's 1-800-507-2266. Full details on example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials.
8,000.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 meteorologist Kristen Cornett with your first alert forecast. Mostly cloudy and breezy overnight with a low of 43. Scattered light rain showers on Thursday with a high of 59. Breezy as well Thursday night. The rain tapers off. We drop to 31 degrees. Friday, partly cloudy, breezy, and colder with a high of 42. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Kristen Cornett.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by The Dental Link. Call Dr. Alan Link today, 314-794-6464 to schedule your free consultation. Offices in Baldwin and Melville, 314-794-6464.
Folks, with spring right around the corner, this is a perfect time to contact Professional Irrigation Systems. We put in one of their irrigation systems years ago. It was the best decision Suzanne and I ever made. You know, for over a decade, I was hauling hoses and buying different sprinklers and having things break and readjusting them. And, you know, I tried to put a lot of care into the lawn. It never quite worked out right. I would tell you, we have definitely gotten our money's worth out of Professional Irrigation Systems with the system that they put in. They installed it in one day, and after they put all the dirt back to where it came from, you couldn't even tell once the grass started growing, and it made the entire yard look spectacular. They will do a custom irrigation design for your property as well. They have a fully certified design team that will customize it for your particular property. They've got awesome financing packages and options available to spread out your payments. They also do a lot of other things. Basically, they're the one-stop shop for beautifying the exterior of your home, lighting installs, landscape lighting installs to accent your architecture, fertilization packages, everything to make the exterior of your home, from your lighting to your yard to the grass growing and the watering itself, so much easier. Their systems they're easy to use, they're intuitive. You can control them from your phone because there's an app for that. Give them a call anytime, 636-692-4441, 24/7. Professional Irrigation Systems is available at proirrigation.com. That's proirrigation.com.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
Our country is being attacked.
Live and local.
The fact that there are lines.
Not received any updates on whether or not there was an uptick in the sale of Doritos.
This is News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps brought to you by Window World. Simply the best for less. 314-993-1800 or visit windowworld.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
We are
I would say doing great as an administration. We've had 2 years where, again, think about where we were 2+ years ago when we got into office. So to be a part of that team.
And welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show here at 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. It is 5:06 in the p.m. here on Central Daylight Time.
You know, they have given second gentleman Doug Emhoff an unusual role. If you'll ever notice, they send him around doing equity gender issues. But that's kind of the role that they've assigned him. They've sent him out to different events, you know, representing the White House.
That's really odd.
Yeah, but that is, I guess, because because his wife is the first VP.
Yes.
But they have tasked him with that's the thing he promotes, and that's traditional for wives of the vice president and the president to have particular causes that they promote. And I guess they thought they were too cute by half by having him, being a man, promote gender equity issues because his wife is the first female, black, Asian. Am I missing anything? Vice president.
Isn't she? Okay, you said
black, Asian,
Filipino, right? That's Asian.
Female.
Do we have to say Filipino and Asian, or can we just say Asian? Does that cover it?
I think it covers it.
Yeah.
This is what I thought whenever he.
Can we say Asian anymore? Because I know there's certain words we can't say about things in the Far East anymore.
I don't know. I thought Asian.
Is Asian okay?
I think it's okay.
I remember I always thought it was weird when Oriental became off limits, and I had an Asian friend that explained it to me. She said the reason why Oriental is something that you describe, like an Oriental rug or a table or a vase or something. They're saying we're not an object, so don't call us Oriental.
Okay.
That's how she explained it to me.
It's weird how
and she's conservative.
It's weird how some things become pejorative when in other parts of the English language they're not. For instance, you can say Englishman, right? But you can't use that for a person from China.
Yeah.
Because that's considered because of the way and
yeah.
There's really no difference, but there apparently is because of the custom in which it was used back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, all of that is very slippery.
Yeah, it's like,
slow.
You know what? Hi, people, we'll just say. Hello, human.
Whenever we just played that clip from the second gentleman.
The second gentleman.
Second gentleman. That's weird saying that, isn't
I know. It's hard. I had to look at my paper because I'm like, okay, it's second gentleman. It's kind of, I don't know why it made me think of this because he's just like, yeah, everything's fine. Everyone's doing great. We're having a great time.
Just smile and wave. Smile and wave.
I mean, yeah, what's a few bank failures amongst friends, right? I mean, Moody's, I think we talked about this yesterday. Moody's downgraded not one bank system, not one bank group, not two. The entire U.S. banking system has been downgraded by Moody's.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden and the second gentleman and everybody else in administration, everything's fine. What, me worry? Don't have another ice cream cone.
And everything is not, back to normal because SVB has been, their deposits are guaranteed by the government. I mean, there's been a couple of other banks that were similar size that have failed as well. There's still, as they call, quote unquote, a contagion in the system, and this thing could just still spread. People could get jittery. Banking and markets, stock market, that's all on how people feel and what they feel has value. And we're not out of the woods yet.
That is absolutely for sure. In the chat box, we got a lot of people chatting away this afternoon. Hello, all y'all. Matt, Scotty, James, David, Linda, and the rest of the gang is on the Facebook chat box. And it's shame on me. I just haven't checked YouTube because I thought we were still suspended on that. So I don't know if anybody's on YouTube.
I think Sharon.
Is Sharon on YouTube? Hey, Sharon.
And Tanya. Sharon and Tanya, they're big YouTubers. But, I mean, again, Rumble and Facebook are the places that we live at, that we primarily live at, that we don't think will be going anywhere anytime soon on those platforms. YouTube is
and we love our folks that listen to the show and comment in the chat box that are regulars. But I've just got to say and you know who you are, Dakota and Jim Talent were better than Wolfie.
I want to give a shout out to Matt on Facebook who said he thinks Horace is a fantastic and informative guest, and he enjoys the fact we have him on every other week.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So we'll continue to have Horace on with that vote of extreme confidence. We've got Wild Man Nate Lucas coming up. If you all are able to listen to the station throughout the day, I know, consider yourselves blessed. I know everybody has to pick and choose their listening habits because we know that our audience actually works for a living, and you're running your kids around and you're taking care of your small business, or maybe you've got loved ones to attend to, or you're living life, you're on the go, right? And so for those of you who don't know or are not able to listen in the mid-morning cycle, Nate Lucas is a frequent flyer on the Vic Porcelli show. I met Nate originally down in Springfield. He was working down in Springfield for the Zimmers down there when I first popped up on the radio down there for the morning show I do. And I haven't talked to Nate in forever. We've texted a little bit, but haven't seen him in man, I think it's been almost a year. And he's a great guy. I don't feel like I'm that far removed from him because he's on Vic's show so much. I hear him once a week there. I thought, you know what? We've got March Madness starting tomorrow. We've got the St. Louis Battlehawks back in St. Louis. We've got Major League Baseball right around the corner. It would be a great time to, as Vic would say, not talk sports with Nate Lucas because Nate loves to get into the world of politics as well. So Nate's coming up at 5:25. We'll talk about some of those major sporting events now that spring is about to be sprung, and we'll also dig into what's on Nate's mind in the public policy and political world. All right, how about I'll do a speaker stump speech.
Listen to me, listen to me.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
See, that's another reason we need communism.
It's time for the Speaker's Stump Speech, sponsored by Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com.
I think it's very apropos that Chris and I are doing a little twofer today, debunking the myths of the far left. Chris talked about the climate change craziness and that myth based upon recent history and a not-too-distant past of predicting ice ages just, not even less than 50 years ago. I mean, really? Does climate change that quickly? You jump from one massive prediction to another? No, they don't know what they're talking about. Well, they don't know what they're talking about as far as climate and weather, and the left does not know what they're talking about as regards the economy either. Found a great piece at The Hill, thehill.com, by Congressman Warren Davidson from Ohio about modern monetary myths. Have you noticed how quiet all of the leftist economists have been the last few days? The Paul Krugmans and the Tom Friedmans of the world. It's because all of the predictions that they've made over the last few years have been shown in all their gory glory pursuant to the failure of these banks this week and the downgrading by Moody's of the entire banking system. Systemic, right? That's systemic. That's not just a one-off. To debunk all the fallacies that have led to this economic failure. Congressman Davis starts off by saying, the story of Silicon Valley Bank's failure and the other banks that have failed and been shuttered this week by regulators should be a cautionary tale about the consequences of ignoring sound money principles. Check out this prediction, folks. Here's where, they don't know any more about the future of the economy than they know about what the weather's going to be in 2 weeks. In December of 2020, the Fed, the people that we are relying on, Jerome Powell and all these very, it seems like they think that if they talk in a really deep voice and really seriously that therefore everybody considers them smart. I don't. I think they're complete and utter idiots because in December of 2020, barely 2 years ago, the Fed said it expected the interest rate that it controls to remain at 0.1% through 2023. As of today, the federal interest rate is at 4.5%. Wrong exponentially by a power of 4 times over. That rapid mismatch of a projection by the Fed, a weather forecast, so to speak, and reality has crushed Silicon Valley Bank and will likely crush other banks for some of the reasons that Chris and I discussed earlier. They took these Fed projections, they made very bad investment decisions, presuming that happy days will be forever here again and that nothing will ever change, and that, the Fed's full of all these really smart economist people, so surely they can't be wrong. Not only were they wrong, they have been dangerously wrong. Relying on the Fed's representation regarding low interest rates, these banks invested in treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities. If interest rates were low, those would be good investments. When they're high, they're no longer desirable. Higher yields, because higher yielding products are available. So SVB had to liquidate and then eventually had to close, causing a panic, a slight panic, to ripple through the entire banking system. So one of the most popular, Congressman Davidson goes on to say, and bipartisan myths, is that deficits just never matter. Proponents have claimed, and we've discussed this many times, the proponents of this fake, phony, easy monetary theory are that governments can continue to spend forever beyond their means without any consequence because the government can simply print money to make up the difference. Folks, how could that possibly be true? You're creating monetary policy based on nothing. Not only did we leave the gold standard long ago, but we don't have any current standard whatsoever that we base any of our monetary policy on. And Congressman Davidson goes on to say, the claim is simply untrue. When Congress increases spending, the Fed responds by increasing the money supply by purchasing treasury bonds from the open market. This increases the supply and soaks up the supply of bonds so the government can issue new ones. Federal deficit spending ends with inflation. Here we are in 2023. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the federal government spent more money than any lender would let us borrow. It massively, therefore, it just made up a new balance sheet by nearly $5 trillion. This monetary expansion, which all of the egg-headed elitist economists said would help the economy, would rescue us, would prevent us from going into recession, did not help the economy. It caused record-breaking inflation, and not just a little bit, inflation that we haven't seen in nearly 50 years. Finally, Congressman Davidson says we have to reject the widely accepted idea that, quote, expert government officials can competently manipulate interest rates and economic policy to control the economy. I just discussed that. For years, Biden, Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman, they claimed that inflation was transitory. They're on record, folks. They're on tape for making those statements, despite clear evidence to the contrary. If these people were so smart, why did they ever utter those words in the first place? The politicians echoed those statements as if they would just take them as gospel truth without even pausing to think about them. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they claimed that additional government spending on top of everything else in the Inflation Reduction Act would somehow bring inflation under control. So wait a minute. So heaping more spending on top of the spending that already caused the inflation was going to somehow lower inflation? How counterintuitive is that? While we sort through immediate next steps and surveil the market for similar risks, Congressman Davidson of Ohio says, we swiftly agree that mistakes created this crisis. No real external forces, actually internal forces of people that we look up to, that we seem to think will know it all. Sound money is essential to a sound economy. The toxic blend of modern monetary myths is crippling and destroying our economy. Before it's too late, America must reject these myths that have led us down a proven path towards economic failure. We must return to embracing sound money principles, limiting deficits, letting the market determine interest rates. By doing so, we can build a stronger and more resilient economy that benefits all Americans. Chris, in addition to the climate crazies, I think we should ignore the economic prognosticators as well. They all seem to be wrong about everything.
Yeah, I think we should ignore them because when they were telling us that inflation was going to be transitory, when Joe Biden was telling us inflation was going to be transitory, they were lying to us. They knew that they were lying to us. I think they were trying to avoid a panic on the markets and trying to avoid a general panic when they knew this wasn't going to be transitory. And they're just an example of their lying.
And they've turned bad into worse. You know, folks, I don't think there's any reason for all of us to panic. I do think we need to start heeding the yellow flashing warning signs and really start thinking about who we're voting for when we're going to the ballot box this year, next year, and the years ahead. All right, that's the stump speech for today. We're going to take a pause here and step aside. It's the Ides of March. Beware the coming of Nate Lucas. He'll join us next here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. We'll talk a little March Madness, Major League Baseball, St. Louis Battlehawks, and some politics and public policy as well. 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
You didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Like and subscribe to us on Rumble. News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 meteorologist Kristen Cornett with your first alert forecast. Mostly cloudy and breezy overnight with a low of 43. Scattered light rain showers on Thursday with a high of 59. Breezy as well Thursday night. The rain tapers off. We drop to 31 degrees. Friday, partly cloudy, breezy, and colder with a high of 42. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Kristen Cornett.
Is your portfolio prepared for the biggest risks facing investors today? Hi, it's Tim Jones. High inflation and a rapidly changing economy may impact your investments. If you haven't made appropriate changes, your portfolio may not be positioned to address some of the biggest risks in today's economy. That means it's time to request your free portfolio review from the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel. You can hear their latest views on the markets and investing during On the Money, hosted by Stifel financial advisors Bob Stockdale and Eric Robert, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on News Talk STL 101.9. They can help you get organized, guide you through critical retirement decisions, and create a portfolio designed around your needs. To schedule your free portfolio review, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com, 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas & Company, Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
I had that cataract surgery. The difference between what I can see now and what I can see 48 hours ago is absolutely stunning.
So you can tell the difference between Gabe and me.
Right.
Yeah,
I can finally
Good,
tell you
yeah.
apart. Stell's the tall one.
Right, exactly.
Britton Vision did the LASIK on the other eye, and that eye's been perfect ever since.
Except for the ground ball that you took
Well,
off.
except for me getting up close and personal with a ground ball. Yeah.
Weekday mornings, 5:30 to 9 on News Talk STL.
Hey, it's Tony Colombo reminding you to do what we did and get the jump on spring cleaning by calling Zero Res today. After the beating dished out by kids, the dog, and just general traffic, our home would not be the same without Zero Res. And right now, you can get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned starting at just $119. Plus, they'll throw in a free hallway and take $75 off an air duct cleaning if you just mention the Colombo special. Call and book now at 314-474-2020 or book online at ZeroResSTL.com.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. We give you news, analysis, opinion, and more. Only on News Talk STL.
End of quote. Repeat the line.
Follow Tim Jones on Twitter at Speaker Tim Jones.
And we've seen Elon Musk tweet that his pronouns, he's the owner of Twitter, that his pronouns are prosecute. Fauci, others in the GOP have talked about arresting you and prosecuting you.
Well, I mean, there's no response to that craziness, Jim. I mean, prosecute me for what? What are they talking about? I mean, I wish I could figure out what the heck they were talking about. I think they're just going off the deep end. That's the answer to your first question. It doesn't make any sense to say something like that, and it actually is irresponsible. Of course, it's going to have a difficult effect and a deleterious effect on my family. I mean, they don't like to have me getting death threats all the time. Every time somebody gets up and spouts some nonsense that's misinformation, disinformation, and outright lies, somebody somewhere decides they want to do harm to me and or my family.
Well, how about prosecute him for everything, right?
Yeah,
everything.
Like Dr. Fauci, hate to remind you of this, sir, but you funded gain-of-function research that has killed 7 million, that's helped kill 7 million people around the world. And I think it was illegal when you were doing that, Dr. Fauci.
Does he have no self-awareness, or do you think he's playing dumb?
He's an excellent liar.
Yeah, I think he's playing dumb.
He's an excellent liar.
So.
One of the best.
Now that we've got Nate Lucas fired up as he's been waiting on the phone, we'll bring him into the conversation as well. Good afternoon, Nate Lucas. How you doing, my friend?
Nate!
Wow. Tim Jones, Chris Arps, J. Fitzpatrick. These are three of my favorite people in the world.
It's been a while.
Just get through. It has been a while, but you guys just made we go like a year, and you bring me back, and I got to listen to 45 seconds of Elf on the Shelf Fauci complaining. What are you talking about? What is he saying? Oh my God! I mean, that guy is such a corrupt individual. I mean, exactly right, Chris. They should prosecute him for everything, and don't stop there. Throw the entire book at him, but they won't.
You know, Nate, I never knew the name Tony Fauci, and I think I think most Americans were in the same boat I was before March of 2020, and now the insufferable little turd, you can't get away from him. But, Nate, I was talking to my dad about him a while ago, back near the beginning of the pandemic, and my father, served. My father was a practicing veterinarian for 50 years, and so he knew all about Fauci. And my dad said, look into Fauci's failure back during the 80s with the AIDS pandemic and his failure as he was pushing a vaccine back then, something that's never been invented. But, boy, he was trying to make some bucks back then, too, wasn't he? Nate, this guy is the biggest government grifter ever to walk the planet, isn't he?
Oh, my gosh, it's horrible. I mean, people should go look that up. In fact, what was the movie that they made about the AIDS pandemic that literally showcases all of the corruptness that Dr. Fauci was involved in? The name of it is escaping me right now. But they made a movie about this. And, everything that Dr. Fauci does, you would think it's under the umbrella of health, and you'd think that he'd have people's best interest. But the reality is that he has nobody's best interest. He has his own pockets as his best interest. That's why he's working with the Chinese government. That's why he's funding gain-of-function research with taxpayer money. And that's why, you know that it's a really sick human being, speaking of veterinarians, when he uses dogs as test and as guinea pigs, and everyone remembers that. It didn't get a whole lot of press on the news channels, but keep in mind, Dr. Fauci used animals where these fleas, essentially gnats, would gnaw off the face of dogs, and that's the kind of research that Dr. Fauci is invested in. So if you think for 1 second that Dr. Fauci has your best interest, you are so lost. And then, frankly, I still walk around, man, and I see people in their mask, and I see people clamoring about their 9th shot, and I think to myself, how are we ever going to get back to normal? How are we ever going to get back to normal when you've got these individuals who have been so sold down a river that they're so far from any sort of reality? It's really concerning, and I think Dr. Fauci has a lot to speak for.
Nick, speaking of people with masks, I flew to D.C. last week, and there was a guy sitting next to me with a mask, and I looked up the research on filters for planes. It's like 97 to 99% pure air that kills COVID, the flu, all of these things. But I just want to put that in. My question is, I'm going to do a completely 180 on you and go to the world of sports. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. Tim's a Dallas Cowboy fan. Tony Colombo's a Dallas Cowboy fan. Tell me it isn't true that Zeke is not on the trading block, which he should.
Well,
be, really.
I think
He's kind of down.
I think today, I think they decided that they were going to outright release Zeke Elliott.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's become official, but that was the last thing I saw. And the Zeke Elliott contract is another example of what happens when NFL teams give massive contracts to these running backs, and you pay guys for what they've done as opposed to what they will provide. And there are, you can go look in NFL history and try to find a good contract that a team has given to a running back past their, third or fourth year in the league, and they are not pretty. They are huge, issues that the teams usually have to do exactly what the Cowboys are looking to do now with Zeke Elliott, whether that's dump him on another team or just outright release him and eat the cost.
Speaking to Nate Lucas, who is on I don't want to screw this up, Nate. You're I don't want to screw. You're on which station now?
That's fine, Tim.
Yeah.
That's fine. Good friend, Tim Jones. Yeah. 590.
590. Yes, I knew that. I knew that. Nate, they kept me up past my bedtime last night. You know how cranky and groggy I get. You know when I don't get my sleep last night. So yeah, Nate.
I feel for Chris and Katie to be in your presence. I mean.
Yes.
I was producer Floyd for you for a while. Let me tell you, when Tim Jones doesn't get his right amount of everything, it's like, oh boy, you can almost see the venom in his eyes.
Nate Lucas, who's with the Rammer on 590 The Fan, high noon every day, Monday through Friday. I had it in my head, Nate. I just had to pull it out of there somewhere, you know? So, Nate, speaking of sports, which is Katie Fitzpatrick's favorite topic.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I'm so into it.
She's got lots of brackets. She's got lots of brackets to fill out tonight,
many.
Nate.
Oh, my
gosh. Nate, with March Madness kicking off tomorrow, give us all the I'm sure you've been poring over all the bracketology. Like, who are the potential big upsets that we may need to look out for tomorrow as the games begin?
So this is the best part about, the sports media, and I've bounced in the sports media. I've bounced the hell out of the sports media. I'm back in it right now. But, all of these pundits, man, they talk about these games like they know exactly, oh, yeah, I've become an expert on Utah State overnight. I know exactly what their transition defense looks like, and their guard play is terrific. It's like, oh, would you just shut the hell up? You don't know anything. I don't know who's worse in this industry between the weather people who get it wrong 4 out of the 5 weekdays or the sports pundits who couldn't pick a game to save their life, and then they come back on Monday after a huge losing weekend with their predictions, and they're like, okay, now let me tell you why everything else is going to be wrong this week. I mean, it's really funny, but I guess they pay you for it, so what the hell? Take the paycheck and run. But here's the thing. I mean, locally, it is a great story, I think, with the University of Missouri. Their first year under Dennis Gates, the Missouri basketball program was largely, but let's just be honest, it was boring. I mean, my God, it was terrible basketball. And so this year, they revamp it. They bring in Dennis Gates from Cleveland State, and frankly, he was a name that when he was hired, not a lot of people were running to say, like, oh, wow, Dennis Gates going to fire up the program. But he has. I mean, they won 23 or 24 games. They get into the program. They finish the season top 25 in the AP, and they draw a 7 seed in March Madness. And just to get back there, this is what it's all about. At the end of the day, like, you're judged, your resume as a coach or a program is judged on your appearances in this tournament. And Mizzou's back in it, and I think, there are a lot of Tigers fans who have been pretty unhappy with the product the last 4 or 5 years, and to get back is pretty rewarding for their, fanhood. So I'm happy for the Tigers.
Nick, when you have these Cinderella wins in the tournament, I've always wondered, did the Cinderella team win because the top-ranked team just took them for granted and just played better, or was this team that you never heard of in a conference you never heard of really a pretty good team and just solidly beat them?
Yeah, I think as a degenerate gambler, I can say this. Don't look at seeds. Like, don't be worried. I would be less concerned about saying, oh, it was a big upset, this seed beat that seed. I think Vegas has it pinned. And you'll find in several occasions where it might be a 5 seed that's going up against a higher seed, but the game, Vegas actually has the higher seed as the favorite team in the game. So, and for the life of me, I've never understood why the people who rank these teams going into March Madness don't utilize a Vegas insider or an odds maker to try to help them out. Just have one of them in the room, for God's sakes. But no, they don't, and so there's not a whole lot of transparency with how these seeds are given. But, you're right. I'm being cynical here, but let's be honest. The tournament is great because we learn about these stories of these universities that we have no idea where they come from. Last year it was St. Peter's. These coaches make their way, and, it's a tremendous opportunity. And, there was a team from Missouri, Southeast Missouri, the Red Hawks out of Cape Girardeau that were in a play-in game last night. And if they would have won, they lost, unfortunately. but they would have been going up against Alabama. And you think, like, wow, little old SEMO in the March Madness big dance against Alabama. It's just cool. It's a great, great showcase for all these athletes.
And have you ever gone by Nick before in your professional life? You know I've been calling you Nick.
You know what? Again, I worked for Tim Jones for a long time. I think I've been called every name in the book. And I can also say this. My very own mother, who I love to death, okay, she'll go, like, through my cousins, my brother, my deceased dog before she gets the proper name. So I'm very used to
Oh, okay, good. I was feeling bad.
When they're 4-letter words. Yeah.
Hey, you've answered to producer Floyd, so you'll answer to anything. Yeah, that's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, good Lord.
Folks, we're speaking to Nate Lucas, who is the host of High Noon on 590 The Fan. Hey, Nate, our resident baseball guru here is our morning show guy, Mike Ferguson, and he likes the Cardinals' chances this year. Nate, I know you're very itching and excited to get them out of spring training and back here at Busch Stadium. What do you think about the Cards, Nate, as we head quickly towards the 2023 season?
Yeah, I think they're an exciting bunch. Look, they're coming off a year where they won 93 games. They weren't projected to do that. They won the National League Central. And they've got this kid that has been performing in spring training, Jordan Walker, who's 20 years old. And I'm not kidding you. He's got an opportunity to be a face of the franchise for a long time. And the Cardinals haven't had a player of this caliber, I think, even going back to Albert Pujols. And I want to be careful before, you start applying, he could be the next Albert Pujols. I want to be careful to not do that, but I also would say that this man is a unbelievable athlete. First of all, he's 6'7".
Oh my God!
Wow.
Yeah, he came up out of I believe the Georgia area as a kind of a third baseman, but the Cardinals have Nolan Arenado, so they asked him last year, "Hey, do you mind going out and playing the outfield?" And he did it perfectly, and he's made some wonderful catches. But he's a power hitter. He's got extra base hit potential. I mean, this guy is going to be, if he makes the team. I mean, he went into spring looking at this like basically a high school tryout, and he has exceeded expectation. And if camp broke today, which it doesn't, but we are 15 days away from the home opener, I would think Jordan Walker would be in the starting lineup for the Cardinals. And they desperately need a player like him to come through their own organization and really be an all-star difference maker. And I think he could be that.
Oh, it's my turn. Go ahead, Tim. I was just so mesmerized there, Nate. I just lost all track of time.
We don't know where to go, Nate.
I'll tell you, it's exciting, man, because the Cardinals haven't won a World Series since 2011. They got there in 2013, but I think there was a moment last year. It was the Pujols return and all of the energy that he brought to the ballpark. I mean, Busch Stadium was full again. And there's a lot of excitement around this organization. And I think that when you return a pretty strong nucleus of a club that won 93 games a year ago, I hope I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid, because I do have my concerns, like their starting pitching's got some issues. But I think they're going to be a team that's fun, and they could have one of the deepest lineups in the National League if it all pans out and guys stay healthy.
I would like to get your thoughts on 38,000 fans going to the Dome for the Battlehawks game. That's insane.
Yeah, the ongoing double bird to Stan Enos Kroenke continues in St. Louis. And as you guys know, this town, man, when you try to shame St. Louis and show up with a vengeance. And I don't know if it's like that in every other city in America, but I do know that this town takes their sports to heart. And when they were trashed on the national scale, like this town couldn't support an NFL team, even though the Rams had the worst 10-year span of any NFL team in the history of the National Football League, and even one person still showed up to watch that garbage, was what it was. But then to be publicly shamed. And then you saw 3 years ago when the Battlehawks in the first rendition of the XFL came here, and all of the excitement. And I'll remind you that there was a game that was supposed to be played right before the whole league shut down, and the COVID, whatever you want to call it, kind of shut everything down. But the LA Wildcats were supposed to come to St. Louis, and that was when they were expected to get 40,000 plus as a big, kind of middle finger to Kroenke. And this was their first game that they've had to host since that moment, and I think St. Louis showed up in pretty strong fashion. And look what's happening with this professional soccer team here. Like people are fired up. Look at what happened several years back when the PGA Championship was here. This town supports sports, but they support sports who reinvest in their community. And Stan Kroenke did the exact opposite. In fact, he lied and he deceived a lot of people, including its fan base. And I think the fan base spoke pretty loudly for an XFL game when 38,000 plus showed up and said, take this.
Yeah, Nate, I love when we have you on because we can now take all this sports discussion. I can weave it into a political question for you that I know you'll have an answer to. So, Nate, as you just said, we got all this stuff going on downtown we've never had before, right? We've got a major soccer franchise, brand new with a brand new stadium. We got a football team back in town with nearly 40,000 people showing up. Cardinal baseball about to kick off with a, nearly finished but yet still expanding beautiful ballpark village. Nate, next to that, we've got crime, a failed education system, and a failed leadership. Boy, Nate, this town could really be kicking it, right? If we could just get our freaking you-know-what together, right?
Yeah, it was funny. Tim, you know him. He was my co-host in Springfield, Johnny Rowe. But he texted me after that first MLS game at City Park, and he goes, wow, that was such a showcase. In St. Louis, he told me, St. Louis really needed that. And it almost brings, the hair on the back of my neck to stand up because I'm so torn. Like, I'm pissed because of the pathetic leadership, but I'm excited that the people can still unite in this town and really rally behind a unifying thing like sports. And so it's really a two-faced subject. But, keep in mind, 2 weeks ago, it was about as depressing as it gets around here when that 18-year-old volleyball player who's out for a stroll with her parents gets run over by a thug because Kimberly Gardner let him out of jail. And you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, how is this town ever going to get another event? How are you going to overcome this? And all of the national nastiness of trying to, recuse her, get her out of office, which should have happened years ago. Don't even get me started on that witch. But here's the thing, man. I think the power of positivity will always win. And we've got to get back to that. And I think this town takes things very passionately and very they take things to heart, man.
Amen.
And when you say that St. Louis can't do something, that's when I think we really shine our best and we overcome. But, man, we're going to have to do a lot of work because you got some terrible people that are leading us right to the water of death. And that is a problem, and I don't know what we got to do in terms of changing the voting, all of that. But, I said this on Vic Porcelli's show, which I join every Thursday on NewsTalkSTL. But I'll say this about, people who are voting for individuals like Kimberly Gardner. You can go to Tower Grove South, and that's where all these white liberals who've got 19 flags outside their house are voting for people like Kim Gardner because they think, oh, it's moving everything forward, and it's a black circuit attorney. Let me tell you something. Go to any black community. See what they think. They're like, we want more policing. We want less violence. Why would we want the criminals who are let out of jail to come right back into our community? Get them the hell out. But, these Karens who sit at a coffee shop all day and think that they're, telling everybody how it should be. It's just like, God, quit ruining our world and maybe take the next play off.
He could be a talk show host, man.
He could be. He could do talk show. He could do talk radio. Yeah, he's got it in him. Nate, man, brother.
Only in my spare time.
That's right. That's right. Nate, we loved having you back on with us today. Folks, tune in to Nate Lucas. He's at high noon on 590 The Fan Monday through Friday. And as you just mentioned, every Thursday morning on the Vic Porcelli Show. You can get more of that wit and wisdom tomorrow morning. Nate, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, Nate.
Anytime. It's my pleasure. Anytime,
Nick.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call him. Yeah. At N.
Yeah,
Lucas.
Nate,
on Twitter. Nate, have a good one. We'll talk to you soon, brother.
Thanks, man.
All right. 5:45 in the PM. He's the best, isn't he?
I do. I like him.
He's so much fun. See, Katie, go sports.
Go
right?
sports.
Yeah.
Caw.
We all should go to a Battlehawks game together. That'd be a lot of fun.
You know what would be so great if we could somehow broadcast before a game.
Oh, that would be a blast.
So cool. I mean, I don't even
be.
know. But you know what? I don't know if they have weekday games.
No.
I think it's only
probably
weekend.
not.
Go sports.
That's all right. We could go to a game and do a Facebook video or something.
That'd be fun.
Facebook Live.
Yeah, that'd be really fun.
Everybody could watch us that way.
Yeah.
Very good. I think we have another promotional idea. Jeff
We
Allen,
do.
get on it. All right, we'll be back to wrap things
you go.
up. Chris, Katie, and I will be for sure, and then we'll turn things over to Larry Connors. Larry Connors USA Daily Report. All that is straight ahead here at 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
The I the Smart song.
You're listening to News Talk STL.
I like to think about a lot of things in the context of a Venn diagram. I love Venn diagrams. Always ask, is there a Venn diagram for this? I'm telling you, it's fascinating when you do.
Talk lines are open now at 314-912-1019. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 meteorologist Kristen Cornett with your first alert forecast. Mostly cloudy and breezy overnight with a low of 43. Scattered light rain showers on Thursday with a high of 59. Breezy as well Thursday night. The rain tapers off. We drop to 31 degrees. Friday, partly cloudy, breezy, and colder with a high of 42. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Kristen Cornett.
Larry Connors, USA.
And I'm against it. I'll fight it every step of the way, and so should you. And the parents who send their kids to this private school, we need to have a come to Jesus meeting.
Larry Connors, weeknights at 6 on News Talk STL.
Stories of New Americans.
Hi, this is Ron Clutho. Join me this weekend for Stories of New Americans, where you'll hear fascinating and inspirational personal stories of people from all over the globe who now call St. Louis home. We'll take a look at the U.S. through newcomers' eyes and get insight into world history and culture, and maybe just learn a little bit more about ourselves.
Stories of New Americans with Ron Clutho. Saturday nights at 10 on News Talk STL.
Report cards are a good way to show how well your kids are doing in class and where they might need improvement. We at the Show Me Institute believe schools should get grades too, so parents can see how their child's school compares to others. That's why we came up with the Missouri School Rankings Project. Click on the website moschoolrankings.org and it's all there. Rankings and letter grades for all the schools in Missouri. The rankings are based on categories such as student performance in English language arts and math, ACT scores, and graduation rates. Then we take the rankings and come up with a grade point average, just like your child has. Each school and district has a grade, and the website is easy to use. And now we've added spending data for every district, so parents, taxpayers, and policymakers can see where the money is going. Don't you want to know how your child's school stacks up? Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
Do you live in West St. Louis County? Then you can get West News Magazine delivered free to your home just by asking for it. West News Magazine is the only print source for the political, school, business, and sports news happening in your hometown. Simply visit westnewsmagazine.com/subscribe or pick up a free copy at all area Deerbergs and Schnuck stores. West News Magazine. Anybody who wants it gets it. Anybody who gets it wants it. Subscribe for free today. Simply visit westnewsmagazine.com/subscribe.
This hour of Jones and Arps brought to you by Window World. Simply the best for less. 314-993-1800 or visit windowworld.com. We give you news, analysis, opinion, and more. Only on News Talk STL.
Have you got color in your cheeks?
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Do you ever get that feel that you can't shift the tide that sticks around like summits in your teeth?
Nikki Haley says presidential candidates over the age of 75 should take a mental competency test. Do you agree?
That's scary stuff.
Why is that scary?
Because, first of all, I don't think anybody's complaining about the mental competency of someone like Bernie Sanders.
What about President Biden?
No. I mean, every individual should look into their own heart and make the decision. They can see him on television, and if they want to be concerned about certain things, they should.
That's almost as scary as dropping too much acid. says Lava Lamp Lady. That's Marianne
Peace,
Williamson
love,
right
and
there.
lava.
Come on, dude. Love everyone.
Come on, man.
You know what, though? She must have taken some lessons in communication because she sounds a lot more direct and, like, quick to the point than she did last time around. She was always just like, cool, dudes.
Yes.
You know?
Well, I think it's because she has a degree in philosophy. There's something with her, and like it's philosophy or something that she has a degree in, where she, writes all of these really long-winded books, I believe. But what do you guys believe about a cognizant test? What do you guys believe at like 75 if you're running to be the next president of the United States? I have mixed feelings.
I don't think that it should be something that is mandated, that if you're a certain age, you must take a cognizant test to prove that you're with it. But I think a precedent should be set that if you are an older candidate and you're doing Joe Biden stuff that seems like you may have some issues, then if someone asks for you to take a test, it's not a big brouhaha or whatever. It's like, okay, that's the precedent is set. I don't know if that's how naive that is, but that's what I'd like to see, but I don't want to see it mandated.
Why not just put an age limit? I mean, we have age limits for everything.
Yeah.
In Missouri, you cannot continue to serve as a sitting judge once you turn 70. That's a spring chicken compared to Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
And Bernie.
that's actually, and Bernie Sanders, that's kind of a problem here in Missouri because, as the population ages, the population levels below the boomer generation, they're smaller. And so there's some that believe we could have a judicial shortage problem, and we already do in some rural areas of Missouri, because once you hit your 70th birthday, you have to retire from the bench. They need to raise that. I think they need to raise that. And maybe for president, maybe you make it 80 years old. You can't be president until you're 35.
Yeah.
So why not put a limit on the other end and just make it like 8? I don't know. Do we really need presidents over the age of 80 years old?
What I'm hoping is that this is just a phenomenon that we're seeing now with Trump and with Joe Biden, that if DeSantis is elected president, we will see people in the 40, the 50, my generation be president from now on, because people will be looking for new leadership. That's Nikki Haley's thing.
POV.
Yeah, I want, hey, vote for me. I'm a new leader. So
I'm younger.
Yes.
I have just mixed feelings about it because being cognizant shouldn't be subjective, but it could be with whoever is giving the test.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you, Chris. Who's going to make the test?
Yeah.
The next thing you know, we'll be arguing about the test.
Yeah.
I almost think, look, if you're going to, maybe the simplest thing to do, age limit, make it 80 or something. I don't know.
I really just think if Donald Trump is not elected and, of course, Joe Biden loses, I just don't think, I don't see a crop of new presidential candidates, Democrat or Republican, except for Bernie, that are in their 70s and 80s. I think all of the up-and-coming bench for the Democrats and Republicans in presidential politics are not baby boomers, but my generation and a little younger.
Yeah, I think
our generation.
I think you're right. I think we're going to go through this wave, and then we're going to see people from 70 and below, maybe significantly, because look at the people besides Trump who are running.
Yeah,
they're all very young compared to Trump, Sanders, and Biden.
It's just weird seeing the transition for me, being a Gen X guy. Of, when you're younger, the president is always this older person, wiser, sometimes a grandfatherly figure. And then when Obama was elected, he's only like 4 years older than me.
Yeah.
It was somebody of my generation that's president, which is kind of crazy. The weird thing is when somebody younger than me becomes president of the United States. That's when I'm going to be like, man, you're getting old, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have such an issue with it because, as you just said, Tim, who's making the test? What are the qualifications for the test? And the comparison is this. There could be someone that's giving the test within the government that says Joe Biden is completely qualified. And then if you gave Trump that same test, they would say Trump isn't qualified. When
Correct.
we clearly as day can see the difference between those gentlemen.
Why do we have to make up a specific cognizance test for the president? Why can't we just use cognizance tests that are already
Available?
out there for people that they
Right.
use every day. It's like this is the such and such test we give to people when it seems that they're having some cognitive abilities. Joe, you need to take one.
Go ahead and take it. Go ahead
This
and
is
take
the standard test that's given to people we think are suffering dementia.
And let's be honest, if Biden was Trump right now, they'd be screaming 25th Amendment
Yes.
every single day because Joe Biden is obviously extremely deficient.
Hey, before we run out of time, I'm on Newsmax tomorrow, 5:36 and 7. Wake Up America and the press conference that we did in D.C. I wrote an article about that on redstate.com. So the video of the press conference is there. The article talking about it is there. So redstate.com. I have bribed Katie, I think, to put it on the site.
We will put it on
I will
there.
get that Hershey bar to you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
I need it.
Check out Chris tomorrow morning at Newsmax. And we've been talking. Are we at it now or next?
Nope. An hour.
We got an hour?
Okay,
1 minute.
It's been a long day, hasn't it, Katie? We're all, like I said, we're all a little groggy from the event last night. We've been talking a lot about the Ides of March. That is the 15th of March. That it's an ancient Roman saying. And I learned something today. I was looking up the Ides of March this morning, talking about it on the morning show this morning in Springfield. And, of course, that's the infamous date, as Chris mentioned at the very beginning of the show, on which Julius Caesar was killed. Here's what I didn't know. Before that, it was kind of eerily, it was kind of like a little premonition. It was the day that it was the deadline by which ancient Romans had to settle their debts.
Oh,
So
wow.
how wild is that? Boy, they settled a debt on Julius Caesar,
Yes,
didn't
they
they?
did.
On
Holy
the
cow.
Ides. So beware the Ides of March. Is
And
what
can
we
you
always
imagine
say.
how that must have felt? You're the man, you're the Caesar and everything, and then all these people you trusted are like stabbing you to death.
You were going to kill
Like,
you.
WTF, man? Seriously?
What up? I thought that was the man.
What up?
Hey, we will be back tomorrow out of the gates at 3:30 in the p.m. for a fantastic Thursday show featuring Jim Carafano and so much more on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
Secrets can you keep? 'Cause there's this tune I found.
Hey, it's Vic, and I'm here with Kathy Connor at Connor Roofing. Kathy, what makes Connor Roofing different?
Hey, Vic. I'm glad that you asked. I think that what really sets Connor Roofing apart is our relationship with our customers. It's very important to us to develop that trust with the homeowner. This is what has allowed us to serve our friends and our neighbors in the St. Louis area for 30 years. Whether we are doing a roof or a gutter repair or even a full replacement, you can count on Connor for quality service and work.